Welcome to this paradise. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We're live on Facebook here with an amazing trio. And it's an honor to bring in Walt Dixon. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, man.
Is this your... Can you trace this? Is this your shed?
It's the shack.
Explain the meaning behind the shack.
This was an old cowboy shed, you know, a little miniature house back in the old days for like the cowboys that were running around the ranch, and we modified it into a music studio when I was about 12. I don't know. Who knows? It was a long time ago.
But you were on the ranch.
Yeah.
And you turned this into your shack.
Yeah, there was a guy named Fay McNally who was the head guy at ACT Music in San Francisco, who lived here with actually the piano that's right out there. He lived underneath the piano, and it was anyway, the studio was half as big then. It was this big, so he had to sleep under the studio. And so he was the music director at ACT in the 70s, I think. So he lived here, and then he drank himself to death pretty much. And then the band came in later on, and we converted it over to a music studio. But I mean, we've been playing music here since we were kids.
I wanted you to talk to the audience worldwide, Walt, about what Marin County was like in the late 60s. And how this is still a sanctuary. But explain, there was a story about a gas station. I remember very vaguely in our first interview. I just want you to paint the picture of what it was like in the late 60s.
In the late 60s, well, I mean, you'd have to go back into the late 50s because of that beatnik era, which kind of swung over into the hippie deal, which Bill was full swing into that. And so we, you know, it was, the guy Fay McNally lived here he was a real beatnik. The short hair, the cropped beard, gorgeous looking guy. And he was a concert pianist.
Really?
Classically trained. So he could read anything. So, I mean, and so it went from that kind of a groove into the hippie movement, which was, you know, started in probably 65, I guess, 66. And everybody moved out here. Everybody was out here, big music scene out here. So the Grateful Dead were out here. I don't know what year you arrived on the scene, but 70, full tilt, 1970. So we didn't have a police force out here, and we still don't. So it's the sheriff's, and it was ideal for the musicians to move out here, because when you're over in town, not only do you have the sheriffs and the highway patrol, we got the highway patrol, but it's kind of a lightweight highway patrol, thank God. And then we've got, we don't have a police force here. Like in Fairfax, you got the police force, police cops, Fairfax cops. So you got a combination. There was half as many cops out here. So everybody moved out here, and it was just kind of a unique scene.
Did Cipollina come out here?
Everybody was hanging out here. I don't know if he ever lived out here. I mean, Mario Cipollina's been down here.
A dear friend of the program. No,
yeah, I'll give you a CD. He helped me record on your way
Love
up.
that cat, man.
Mario, he was.
I was just up at the Cipollina house, driving through all the way up to the top of that mountain. It was pretty, with all the posters. But you have a special relationship with Elvin Bishop. You connected with Elvin back in the day?
I never knew I was going to end up being friends with him. I mean, I used to go to his concerts when I was a kid. And then he moved out here, and he's got a house out in the valley, and so we hooked up, and he's playing on my next CD, and he sits in with the band. So, you know, occasionally, it's no big deal. He shows up when he feels like showing up, and there's no pressure, and we have a good time.
Bill Vitt, it's an honor. Can you talk to the audience about the story about Edie Gourmet, how you got involved with the studio scene in Los Angeles?
Well, I moved to Los Angeles in about 64 or 65.
Project out. Make people want to hear your voice.
64 or 65, I moved to LA with the idea to become a studio musician. And I lucked out. I was doing demo sessions. And back then you'd kind of run around West Hollywood and wherever and do demo sessions. It was like $15 a tune. So I'd go over here, then I'd go over there. But one time I went over to Don Costa's studio on Fairfax, where Frank Sinatra was doing all his recording, blah, 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 and Edie Gourmet. And Edie Gourmet heard me play on a demo session and hired me to do an album with her. So I lucked out and got into that group of people. And for 3 years, I was doing that, and I decided I wanted to move back up north. I just like it up here much better.
What was the experience like in the studio with her, though, live? Hitting you live at the same time?
Well, we actually recorded all the music before she came in.
You recorded the demos, and then she...
Well, not the demos. We did the master sessions. And, you know, LA is like all layered.
Right.
So we'd do the music, and then she'd come in later and sing over the music. So we didn't do it live. And Don Costa was an incredible arranger. He would sit down on the piano and go, da, 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 and write all the string parts and whatever. And
I just want to be clear, because Dennis Budemer's tuning into this.
He was on
Okay,
this.
Budemer was there, and who else was there? Blaine? I mean, I'm trying to... Most people don't realize that Vitt was a studio cat for a while.
Well, Hal Blaine was the...
We all know that. We all know that.
Joe Osborne, the bass player. And it was a real click. And so anyway, I did some of those, and I also did stuff for these two guys called the Paris Brothers, who did stuff for Motown. Motown had moved to LA, so I did some demos with them, which was a lot of fun. They wrote great tunes and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, then I moved back up here. I was playing with I got a gig with the Coasters, and we happened to be playing up in Hayward, and I decided I didn't want to do this anymore. So I moved to Sausalito, and not too long after that, I got a gig with Michael Bloomfield. And then it kept progressing to different bands. Bill Chaplin, Jerry Garcia, blah, blah, blah. And so I've been up in Northern California ever since.
No, I mean, Pat Boone, there was that whole thing about him possibly being the white contingent of Motown. That may or may not have been just a rumor. But the truth is, Bill, how did you learn from your earliest age, like what you learned from your dad about how to swing a big band? What did you learn?
Well, I was there when my dad's band rehearsed, and I just felt the swing. And a couple times I actually played on a snare drum when his drummer didn't make it to the rehearsals.
You did?
My father, you know, he arranged put the bands together. Back then they were down to about 14-piece bands. You know, prior to that they were really big bands. But he had a gig with his big band for years. So I was around that all the time. And then Elvis showed up. That changed everything. Not for my dad, but for me.
Mike Clark is tuning in, and I think it's important for you to talk to the audience. There's a lot of it's a people's history of music on the Jake Feinberg Show, and why don't you talk about when you had the drum chair? You were the funkiest white boy in Sacramento. You had the Deltones, the Delphonics. What was the soul band that
Del Counts?
The Del Counts.
Yeah. Mike and I both.
It was an all-black band.
No, that was a different band.
But that's when you first met Mike Clark.
Yeah. Mike took my place in the Del Counts as their drummer. And then Mike and I started hanging out there and then in the Bay Area when he moved up here, when we both moved up here. And but we were both known as funk drummers. That was our main thing.
What would be your recommendation for playing with a black band?
A recommendation?
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire?
No, I'm saying as a drummer. You know, you talked about those sessions at Dave's Soul Kitchen when there was some pressure on you being the only white cat in the band.
Yeah.
So what would be your recommendation to cats around the world?
To recommend what?
How to be funky.
How to be funky?
Yeah.
Playing an.
How do you listen? You talked about going to they tried to play that up-tempo tune and run you out of the place.
Oh.
And you said, I'm going to play. So what is your advice to the cats out there?
Well, if you're young and white and want to make an impression,
Yeah.
sit in the Parisian room in L.A. on Monday nights when you're the only white guy in the place. And they start a song, they say, let's get him out of here. And they go, da, 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 way up tempo. And you're like, this, oh my God. And Dave's Soul Kitchen in Sacramento was the same kind of thing. And that's where I learned how to really play. I was a music major in college and all that kind of stuff. But where I really learned how to play was in the after hours joints.
Was it just learning to feel?
Just total feeling.
Total feel.
Yeah, no think, just play.
Well, we're having a ball here. You guys take it away. We've been talking a lot. You can play some more music. It's an honor to have you all here. Lead the way, Vitt.
So, play one of your things.
What do you feel like doing?
It's up to you.
Well, we could rip it up a little bit.
Oh, wow. What a treat.
Okay. And you can't forget David Russ.
Dude,
here.
David.
He's a great cat, lives right by Harold Jones.
David, just before we start, do you get really uptight about tempo shifts, like when things slow down or speed up, or you want to be? Because sometimes people don't really care about that kind of stuff.
No, I do, and playing with Bill is a pleasure, and Harold Jones is another guy that whatever you started at, that's what it's going to be, and there's no changing. And you know what? It makes you feel safe. You know, it feels like you're in your mother's arms because there's no dilly-dallying around. You know, we're going to play it, and this is how it's going to be. Whatever you counted out, we're going to do it, and that's what you got to do.
Have you been how have you basically carved out a career as a Marin County musician, or is there a legacy, more of a legacy to you that you want to talk about?
I don't need to talk about myself. You know, I played all over. You know, I started off being a reggae bass player.
Oh, beautiful.
And I love playing reggae music, and I toured with a band called the Shakers for years and years and years, and been on tour with lots of guys like Oswald, Maxi Priest, these kind of cats. And now out here, I'm getting older. Still love the reggae, but I love doing everything from jazz, but Harold Jones, playing with the funk, playing the R&B, playing with Walt here, everything he's got to do. I play with another band called Kate Gaffney Band. Another great singer-songwriter.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's all about keeping it going. And that's what you got to do as a musician, and you get older, you're an old dude, you're not the young sweet looking guys, getting all the girls and getting all the gigs, but you still got to play.
Can you talk about an experience that you had on the bandstand when the group itself was getting off, and that transcended and expanded the consciousness of the audience, and it came back to the musicians? I mean, that's the ultimate goal of spiritual music. Was there a time, even in the reggae setting, when
Sure.
you talk about that?
Yeah. You know, one thing about, I'm a groove player. You know, I'm not a flash solo gonna be, you know, lots of sparks and stuff like that. I'm in the groove, and I'll find a groove, and I can play it for a couple days nonstop. And that's what it is like with reggae music. For years and years, I did reggae music, and you kind of get in a groove, and it's transcending, you know. And I remember doing a show, and then getting done, and some girl came up to me and was like, "Man, looked like you were having sex with that thing." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I was just playing,
making love,
you
man.
know, just playing." And it's about a groove and just transcending and getting to another level, you know, is what it's all about. And playing anything, you know, playing a shuffle, playing swing, it's all about finding that groove and sticking to it and being true to it.
What does Harold Jones do? What's his best thing that he does?
He grooves, and he keeps the tempo.
Right.
He can swing.
Can he play free?
Nobody. Yeah, he can play free. Can he?
Play what?
Free?
Free?
I mean,
What is free?
Harold Jones is a
No, free. More in a context of free music.
Yeah, I mean, he's come down here to record album songs with me. He's playing on my CD that I'll give you, Sky Blue Band CD. But man, he's just great. You just lay anything on him. I mean, I recorded a song with him that's so freaking slow. I've never recorded anything so slow in my life. I never would have got through it. And Harold just found that groove way down there. He loved it. He loves slow stuff. He's just like, chong, you know. Oh man. And
it's that groundedness, that grounded.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe so. Mario was involved with that too. He's tuning into this.
It's a song called Passe. And
Walt Dixon has a huge fan base, by the way. People are loving to see you on your face, by the way.
It's Sky Blue Band. Actually, it's the 50th year coming up in a month that the Sky Blue Band's been around. But of course, 3/4 of the band has died because I hung out with a lot of older cats. We had kind of a jazz band, and the older guys. The whole union scene was falling apart, so they just started doing side gigs, and we ended up at Spec McCullough's jamming on Friday nights. We had like 5-6 horns that show up. They're all older union cats, you know, school teachers, whoever. And man,
any names you can throw out there? I mean, who are you talking
Charlie
about?
Spivak used to hang out.
Charlie Spivak? Are you kidding me?
From you know, he was every time Woody Herman would tour through, Charlie'd stay up at my house in Forest Knolls. So he didn't have anywhere to stay at. I said, well, just give me a buzz when you're in town. Just come on up and you could crash there. So, you know, when they were playing in the Bay Area. So, but he ended up getting in a real serious car wreck and then ended up passing away.
Did you spend a lot? Were you familiar with the Bolinas scene at all?
There was a guy here that was hooked up into it called Earl Zero.
Who is he? What was that cat about?
Earl Zero was a reggae guy that grew up with all.
He was Jamaican, or he was
Jamaican. And Jimmy Cliff, all those cats kind of grew up together in the same motif, and he was out here for years, and he was heavy into the Bolina scene out there. So I mean, I played briefly. He'd come down here. We would do a lot of jamming, man, and it was a groove. He had a groove I never did understand. I never did get it. I mean, you know. So, but I mean, I wrote a nice reggae song, but I mean, trying to get the guy's groove was impossible for me. Just impossible. It was so cool. You know, he'd smoke a freaking spleef about this long.
I can't believe you're blowing my mind. You're telling me he was out there with Lorca and these other...
Earl Zero's got about 1,000 records, man. He's one of the great unknown cats that was... I mean, he was a wild man, but it's standard procedure for those guys to be wild and kind of uncontrollable, and they hung out with some pretty interesting characters also, but... So he sat in with my band, but I think he hired me once or twice to back him up out in Bolinas. There's a couple places out there.
You know, before we move on, someone just chimed in and said they want me to ask you a pedestrian question. It's not a pedestrian question by any means, but Bill Vitt, tell the audience worldwide how you put together the Jerry Garcia Band? What became known as the Jerry Garcia Band?
Well, it wasn't me in particular. Howard Wales, the organ player, and I got a gig at the Old Matrix on Fillmore, and it was an organ duo, just organ and drums, and it turned into a big jam scene. And a lot of the people like Early Santana, Tower of Power, all the local musicians.
George Marsh, Denny Zeitlin, all those cats.
Well, yeah, they played there, but they weren't a band. But
right.
Anyway, Jerry Garcia was a good friend of Howard's, and so he came in, and he started coming in every night. So that became the trio, and then I got a bass player that was playing with the Oakland Symphony named Richard Phoebus.
Phoebus. Richard Phoebus was Phoebus, yes.
Yeah, and he was a bass player for a while, although I was playing a lot of sessions and gigs with John Kahn, with the Bloomfield Band, etc. So I got John on the gig, so it became a quartet.
But John did not know Jerry before you connected them.
I don't think so.
Because you were playing with Noel Jukes in the Bloomfield Band.
He played with us sometimes.
So John was the bass player there, and you were the rhythm section, right? And then you started playing at the Matrix, but you brought John to the Matrix.
Yes.
There it is, in the flesh, and then that became, I guess, Hooterol was cut from that.
Right, and another horn player, Ron Stallings, the Rev.
Rest in peace, man.
Yeah, he played with
what
us a
a
lot.
cat, man.
Yeah, and a trumpet player named John Wilmot.
He'll be tuning into this.
So
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, but
it's all, you know, just a.
Don't forget about Fantasy.
Well, I think you know about all that stuff we did.
Vitt, I mean, we're not. Listen, can you start up another groove here? You know,
Sure.
The audience wants you guys to play. They were loving that before. Walt was just riffing his head off.
Yes, he was.
Well, the Ripper is Terry Haggerty. He's going to be playing with us on the 4th of July. I get to be his rhythm guitar player.
I got to crash with Hags at his beautiful establishment in San Mateo 2 months ago.
Yeah.
He treated me like he was 5-star.
Yeah, I was just on the phone to him.
I love Haggerty, man.
Yeah,
he's a legend.
Hag is the legend for guitar players.
And a genius too.
Mike Bloomfield was here. Also lived out in the valley from '67 to '68, and he would stop in and show the kids how to like put strings on guitars and of course he was like
Bloomfield would?
Yeah, Guitar Player magazine. There he is, the #1 guitar player. You know, Mike Bloomfield would be hanging with us at the Dixon Brothers garage. I'm like, you know, I was 12 years old.
Walt, were you hanging at the Helleborg a lot?
No,
I didn't.
that was Bill.
Yeah, Vitt. All right, enough. People want to cook up. Maybe we'll start with start the groove.
You want to do Jamming on Me?
That's a good funky one. Was I gone before a storm? Hell's about to buzz. The cops have run away. It's a gut feeling I trust. Gonna write down all I know. I wanna get on to my bike. 5 cops later, don't move or it's your life. You been jamming on me, baby. I heard you jamming on me, baby. You been jamming on me, baby. It's up to God and that you're fading. What's this game you've been playing? You say you don't lie, you're gonna do it to my face. Got a little problem, yeah, you know I hold the ace. Gonna see my doctor and you know he's on my side. If you break both my arms, you know I wouldn't lie. You've been jamming on me, baby. Oh. Yeah, been jamming on me, baby. Jamming on me, baby. It's up to God that you're free. What's this game you've been playing on me now? say you don't lie, and you're gonna do it to my face. Got a little problem, baby, and you know I hold the ace. I'm gonna see my doctor, you know he's on my side. If you break both my arms, you know I wouldn't lie. 'Cause you've been jamming on me, baby. You've been jamming on me, gun. Jamming on me, baby, yeah. You've been jamming on me, baby. It's up to God that you're feeling. What's this game you've been playing? Yeah, it's up to God that you're feeling. What's this game you've been playing on me? Well, it's up to God that you're feeling. What's this game you've been playing?
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see y'all in a little bit.